Hi, Ashley. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to you about the CM585 Addiction and Substance Abuse class.
Yes, thank you.
The 585 class is an elective that's offered here in the CMHC program. And for some students, they are required to take it depending on the state that they live in. Their state may require that they take an addiction counseling class. For other students, they can take it because they're opting to take it or choosing to take it. So, what would you share with a student who may be considering taking the course as an option?
I would definitely say that they should take the course just so they can educate themselves on addictions. A lot of times when you think of addictions, you immediately go to substance use or alcohol. But one of the things that I learned from taking the course is there's not only those addictions with substances and alcohol, but there's process addictions, such as I believe shopping addiction was one of them, eating, sexual addictions, and just learning about those was an eye opener for me as well. But on top of that, no matter where you work, you're going to encounter an addiction. You're going to encounter someone who might have, an addiction plus a mental health illness and so on and so forth. So you need to have that education and those skills to be able to effectively treat not only the addiction but the co-occurring mental illnesses as well. So taking this course would definitely prepare someone if they do encounter an individual that has both of those, or just a substance use or an addiction as well.
So you found it to be helpful for you to kind of expand your awareness of the field of both addictions and process addictions because you see the benefit that maybe, a client presents in counseling for an issue that may be related to addictions, may not, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be working in an addiction setting in order to see it. I also think that it's really important for students to know that addiction can affect family members. And so having a background in addiction knowledge can help a family member who might be coming to you for counseling to adjust to an addicted individual in their family. And oftentimes we see that in mental health counseling, not specifically in addiction counseling.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, not only do we see family members that are affected by it, but we have friends, and there's just a wide range of people that are affected by addictions in general. And a lot of times when these individuals do come, especially when we talk about the process addictions, they're not going to present to the counselor with the addiction itself. It might actually be a mental illness that they're coming to, like anxiety, for example, or depression or something, but you can't ignore the addiction. And so you have to treat that as well. And going into this course, one of the things that I learned, especially just with myself, is some of the biases that I have towards substance in general. I'm just talking about that addiction specifically because I did have biases towards substance use. But going into this class, there were so many things that I realized about individuals with that addiction specifically that really opened some doors for me and into the professional world with treating addictions. So I really enjoyed that.
That's awesome. And, I think you're right. I think the course can actually challenge students to look at addiction from a different perspective. Like with many of our courses, we go in with some preconceived notions. And, when I designed this course, I kind of designed it to challenge students and to help them see that what we previously thought may not always be the case, and that this population deserves some recognition that we don't always get in research, in workshops and presentations, because addiction is seen as a separate field when in actuality, as you said, with co-occurring disorders, addiction occurs so often in our clients, whether it's the presenting issue or potentially a secondary issue. So, can you share with students a little bit about some of the important elements of the class or what you found to be really helpful in some of the activities you did in the class?
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed one of the projects that we did throughout the class was we got to pick a specific process addiction to kind of research on. And so doing that in itself, the research really helped me kind of go through that and realize like what the symptoms were and what we look out for in treating process addictions, because it's different than treating like an addiction to alcohol. And also just realizing that there are process addictions, internet addiction, gambling, those types of things, which you don't really think about. On top of that project, we were required during the discussion boards to pick a different addiction that someone else was writing on. And so we were introduced to all of these types of addictions and how they might affect somebody, and just really educating ourselves on those different addictions and how we'd move forward with someone who is dealing with these things. And so, and not only that, but culturally, and we were able to kind of talk about all of these aspects related to addiction within a discussion board. And so it was really enjoyable to kind of go through and see what other people had to say, and really voice the opinions and everything on those aspects.
So you had your case study that you were researching for your discussion post and ultimately for your final project, but because you were asked to respond to peers who had been researching a different addiction, it really forced you to learn about all of the addictions and not just the one you were focused on.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely.
So what a great way to be challenged through the class as well and expand your knowledge about that. So tell me one of the things you found really surprising about the course in terms of an approach to addiction treatment.
One of the things that I really enjoyed learning about a lot of times, and this is one of my biases that I had going into the course, was that when you treat addiction, it's immediately abstinence. And so going into the course, that's where my mind was, but I learned about some different treatment modalities, such as like harm reduction, where, obviously abstinence isn't always the right answer. One of the things that we kind of talked about was eating disorder. You can't require a client not to eat, obviously. So how would you go about treating this client who has an eating disorder or an eating addiction or something along those lines? So it kind of empowered me a little bit, because I was, going into it, I was like, abstinence, no one's going to want to do that. That's such a high feat for someone to try to reach. But there are other options in treating these. And not only, is that good for the clinician, but a client coming into an office with an addiction who's being told abstinence is the right thing is going to respond differently than someone that's like, okay, let's talk about this harm reduction. Let's talk about reducing the addiction. Let's talk about some of these other treatment modalities that might work for you. And so that really excited me, because previously I wasn't very interested in substance use or addictions or anything like that. But after learning about some of those modalities, it really kind of perked my interest a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you really enjoyed the class and that you had a lot of takeaways from it. And so I really appreciate your time today. I appreciate you being willing to sit and talk with me a little bit about the course and what you got out of it. And I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And I'm sure that your fellow students will appreciate the information you were able to provide to them in our little infomercial here today.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm definitely using the skills and information that I learned in the course now in my field work. So I would definitely recommend it to other students.
Great. Thank you. You have a great evening, Ashley.
You too. Thank you.
Mhm.